What would it feel like to be truly, deeply happy, regardless of your circumstances? Did you know that happiness is a choice and not a result? That you can create your life on purpose? Join us now to learn more. This is the Time to Rise and Thrive radio show. And here's your host, mindset coach, and facilitator of change, Jackie Mott.
Hello and welcome. Happy Friday. Welcome to Time to Rise and Thrive on Inspired Choices Network. I'm your host, Jackie Mott, and today we have a really great show. I'm so excited about this. This show is called Don't Give Up, You've Got This. And what we're going to be talking about today is how do we push through? How do we dig deep? What kinds of things do we need to do when we find ourselves facing some big challenge? And it is so important for us to have that mindset. I was just speaking with Kim. Kim's my producer today. She's a beautiful, wonderful, lovely, lovely woman. And we were just talking about some of this before we came on air. It is so important for us to allow ourselves the space to be who and what we are, and just to embrace who we are. And that's what we do every Friday on Time to Rise and Thrive. That is my goal. Every single show, my goal is for us to start to understand, this subliminal soundtrack and our own unique beauty, our own unique magic, and the contribution that we are to the world. Those are the things that will help you to understand who you are. Those are the things that will help you to embrace everything about you. There's not a perfect person on this planet. There's not a perfect thing in nature. And what would happen? What could we free up? What could we allow to come into our lives if we could allow ourselves to be exactly what we are? Far from perfect. Perfectly flawed is one of the things that I like to say. Perfectly flawed. So in our totality, in our wholeness, with every flaw, with every part of our bodies that we look at and we kind of go, I don't know about that, right? But every part of that makes up who you are. So we want so much. I want so much for everyone that I work with, everyone who hears my voice, to start to understand how truly amazing they are. And this world would never, ever be what it is without each and every person and what they bring to the world. You are a contribution, whether you know it or not. And as we go through today's show, we're going to be talking about some of these mindset issues, some of these things that sort of stop us or hold us back from becoming all that we can be. What would your life be like? What could shift and change for you if you were able to allow yourself just to be you? If that were enough for you to be you, if you were able to be an allowance of people viewing you the way that they view you and feeling the way about you that they feel, what could change in your life? I promise you, these things, it's so juicy and yummy when we really start to get into this. So today's show, what we're going to be talking about, what I've written for the show. So when we're working through a healing crisis, or any other crisis for that matter, and over the last couple of years, there have been many of them, haven't there? We've got all kinds of stuff going on in the world that is completely beyond anyone's control. So when we find ourselves in that place of crisis, we may reach a point where we get tired, right? We get tired. We get emotionally exhausted, physically exhausted when we're push. Sometimes we have to keep going even when we're in that space. So what do we do when that happens? How do we dig deep? How do we have that mindset, have those messages playing in our mind that will help us to push forward? If you've ever faced this and you've struggled with it, you are in the right place. I would very much encourage you to go grab a pen and paper if you're able to. If not, you can always go back. InspiredChoicesNetwork.com has every recording. So if you go to InspiredChoicesNetwork.com and you search either Jackie Mott or Time to Rise and Thrive, you will find every single episode. And we've got some really good ones. Some of the ones that we've done this year have really kind of blown me away, in all honesty. I have so much fun. I love sharing these perspectives, and I bring this stuff to you from conversations that I've had with clients and with colleagues and other people who are working through some of these challenges, some of these things. One of the things that I was thinking about this morning as I was getting ready for the show is that very often things are hardest right before the breakthrough. So if you think about anything, if you think about birth, the hardest part is when that baby is right there and ready to come out, isn't it? And I mean, some people may not be able to relate to that, but I think the idea is clear. When we think about even winter, where I live, winter can get pretty harsh. And I used to live in Alberta, and it was even more harsh when we were out there. It was, man, you would get, the storms that we got out there. So you get to somewhere in the neighborhood of like February, March, and you're just getting tired of it. You're getting tired of that cold weather. You're starting to feel like, oh, I can't wait for spring to show up. It's a thing that happens over and over and over in our lives. We get to that point where we're just like, I'm tired of this. So what do we do? What do we do when that happens? So before we get too far into that, I want to share with you what this subliminal soundtrack is, because that's my thing, that's my language, and we always have new people coming on the show. So I want to make sure that everybody understands what we're talking about. So your subliminal soundtrack is that loop of messages that plays in the back of your mind all day, every day. It's made up of little bits of information that you've picked up throughout the course of your life. So every single experience you've had, every conversation, every relationship, every lesson you've ever learned has given you little bits of information. And you've stored those back there on that subliminal soundtrack. Now we use that information to create our belief systems. We use that information to tell us what it means. So what does it mean to love or be loved? What does it mean to have money or not have money? What does it mean to be resilient? What does anything? What does it mean? What does it mean when somebody says a certain thing? All of that will influence how we be in our lives. It will influence our perceptions of things. There are usually people that we know that you kind of go, wow, I didn't even think about it from that perspective. And sometimes that's really great, because sometimes it causes us to have a thought process that makes us be a little bit more conscious of how we're saying things or doing things. Sometimes it sort of shows us that people have sensitivities. They're very sensitive to certain things. And, sometimes it's important for us to just be ourselves. I don't really be around a whole lot of people who cause me to censor myself. At the same time, I'm very conscious of when I'm talking about something that's sort of dicey. I'm very conscious of trying to deliver that with kindness, with love, with respect for everyone who's involved. But sometimes, you've got those people that they can be set off like that. And I think to myself, wow, I don't understand why that's so upsetting. I don't understand. So sometimes, again, that gives us an opportunity to learn a little bit better how we're showing up in the world. And sometimes it's about the other person's perspective, and it's really got nothing to do with us. Do you understand what I'm saying? This is why sometimes we can see two people show up at exactly the same thing. They're standing maybe even right beside each other, and they witness something happening, a car accident, or a fireworks display, or anything else. And those two people could have completely different experiences. They could have completely different viewpoints of what took place, because their subliminal soundtrack, that is the thing that influences their perception of everything that is going on around them. So this idea of the subliminal soundtrack is very important for us to get to a place where we know what's happening, where we address those messages that maybe aren't so helpful or aren't very healthy, and create new messages that replace those, that actually help us move toward the goals, that move toward our happiness, move toward healthier relationships, move toward whatever it is. Maybe it's more money, maybe it's a different career, whatever it is for you. When we have the right messages playing back there, and we're going to talk about some of this stuff, I'm going to share some of my experiences with you today, and how this has actually shifted, and surprised me because when we do our work and we address those things, we have to sometimes practice them for a little while, but then all of a sudden when we really need it, it's there and we don't even have to try. Do you see what I'm saying? It's very exciting. It's very exciting because those messages, the ones that are holding us back, the ones that are causing us to feel poorly about ourselves, the ones that are causing us to limit ourselves, we can change them. We can change them. And by adopting new belief systems, we can actually change our lives completely. This is something, it's happened for me, and I've seen it happen with other people that I know. So when I get to see people breaking through, when I get to see people sort of getting that like understanding of, oh, I understand what's happening right now. And it's not helping me. So what can I do with it? When I start to see that happening with my clients, with my friends, with my family members, whoever it is, when I start to see that happening, I just get so excited, so much joy. I absolutely love what I do. I love this work. So how does this subliminal soundtrack sort of work around this idea of digging deep, not giving up, pushing through? How does that all be affected? So one of the things, we've got sort of two things. The first one is, if you believe that life is hard, that you're not very smart, or you're not very strong, or you're not very pretty, or you're not whatever it is, right? Because it could be you're going back into the dating world at a certain point in your life, and maybe you don't feel quite as pretty as you did when you were 20 years old. It's a thing. It's a thing that happens to many of us. Not sure whether or not that happens for men. I would be very curious to find out. I would imagine it does, though. So maybe it's that, or maybe you don't feel really qualified to go into a new direction in your career or in your life. When we have these belief systems that tell us that we're not strong enough, we're not pretty enough, we're not smart enough, we're not funny enough, we're not whatever enough, then that is when we will trip ourselves up and we will make things much more difficult for ourselves, because we are being tripped up and we are buying into those stories that tell us that this is going to be really hard, or worse yet, I can't do it. Okay. On the flip side of that, if we believe that we can get through anything that life throws at us, if we believe that, then we are going to figure out how to get through it. We are also going to have a different experience of the process, because we are not going to waste our time wallowing in, this is so hard, this is so hard, this is so hard. We're not going to waste our time in that space. What we're going to do is we're going to get busy sort of figuring out, what do I need to do in order to get through this? And how can I do that with as much ease as possible? Do you feel the difference in those two spaces? It's a very different way of being, a very different way of being. And I mean, really, that like the harsh truth is that when we come up against something, there are only two options. Either we are going to survive it or we're not. Two options. So if you don't survive it, I guess it really doesn't matter a whole lot, does it? Right. So you will survive it or you won't. So let's get busy surviving it in the best way that we can, in the way that is going to bring us the most ease, in the way that is going to just be so much lighter than getting into that space of wallowing around in the muck of how hard things are. Life is hard. Life is hard. There's no getting around it. So you get to choose whether you're going to perceive life as being hard, or whether you're going to say, well, life is life and I'm going to have fun. Which one do you want? Which do you choose, my friend? Which do you choose? So our perspective dictates every single thing. And we have been going through this pandemic. This is a worldwide thing. There are wars going on. There's all kinds of stuff going on in the world, right? And some of it is very hard. And quite frankly, I feel incredibly blessed to be in Canada where I am for the most part, because there are so many things that I don't have to worry about that other people on this planet, it's their daily thing, right? So I understand that I'm very, very fortunate to be in a place where I'm relatively safe, and where I really don't have to worry about a whole lot of things. I'm very blessed. And that there's a freebie for you. We're going to get into that later in the show, but that is one of the most important things is to really get how fortunate you really are, how fortunate you really are in this moment with whatever is happening, how blessed you really are. Okay. That is one of those things that will pull us out of that muck really quickly. So we're going to get more into that later on in the show. Right now, I need to go to break. I know I have to go to break. So stick with us for just a moment. You're with us on Time to Rise and Thrive on Inspired Choices Network. I am your host, Jackie Mott, mindset and empowerment expert. And today we are talking about don't give up. You've got this. What do you do to push through when things get really hard? So stick with us for just a moment. We will be right back.
What do you tell yourself when you're not listening? This question came to Jackie Mott when she was trying to find peace and purpose in the wake of tragedy. She began to understand that a lot of her pain and choices had been the result of how she perceived herself and her place in the world. And she set about creating a new subliminal soundtrack that would support her in creating a life of abundance, joy, and fulfillment. To learn more about how she did that and how you can do the same, join Jackie on her radio show, Time to Rise and Thrive, every Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 12 noon Central, 11 a.m. Mountain, and 10 a.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
Are you a subject matter expert? Are you here to share your expertise with an audience waiting to hear from you in only the way you can deliver? Are you ready to have your voice amplified across the airwaves? Inspired Choices Network has a global radio platform streaming to millions of people across the world. Professionally produced and supported by an accomplished team every step of the way, you can broadcast from anywhere in the world, knowing your voice matters, and we ensure it is delivered with ease and efficiency. Eager to hear your message, the world awaits. Contact us today to become an Inspired Choices Network radio host. Email become a host at inspiredchoicesnetwork.com.
This is the Time to Rise and Thrive show with mindset coach and facilitator of change, Jackie Mott. To participate in the program, join our live studio audience in our chat room at inspiredchoicesnetwork.com. For more information, visit phoenixcoach.ca, where you can follow Phoenix Coaching online. Now, back to the program.
Hello, and welcome back to Time to Rise and Thrive on Inspired Choices Network. I'm your host, Jackie Mott. Today, we are talking about don't give up. You've got this. How do we push through when things get really, really tough? So let's just get real about this whole thing. Life is not easy. It is not easy. And I just today I want to just shoot from the hip because I don't feel like it helps when we pussyfoot around crap. Do you know what I mean? When we pussyfoot around, we don't talk about real things. It just doesn't help. It doesn't help anybody. So today we are going to get really, really, really honest. And, I'm going to share some stuff with you that I have not talked about in public before. So one of the things that I would like for us to consider is that we learn the most about ourselves when things are really challenging, don't we? We learn how we show up. We learn maybe that we are more compassionate than we realized, maybe that we're more of a jerk than we realized, like whatever it is. I remember when I was pregnant, I was in this like home for teen moms, and man, I was scared. I was 16 years old. This baby's coming. I don't really know. Can I do this? Can I do this? And one of the other young ladies that was there, she was younger than me. She was quite a bit younger than me. And she had a really a hard story. And we got to know each other. I just loved her. I can't remember what her name was, but I absolutely adored this girl. And I remember at one point she got really sick to her stomach. I don't remember what it was, some sort of virus maybe. But she was like, she's going to dehydrate, whatever. So those of us who lived there, we sort of tried to check in on her, make sure she was doing okay. while she was riding out the illness. And there was a time when she got so sick and it just wouldn't stop. And I was the one who was sort of sitting with her at that time. And at first, I'd been like, oh my God, because that was one of my fears, babies get sick and sometimes it's messy. And how am I going to do what I need to do to take care of this person when that happens, right? It's unavoidable. It happens. So what I learned in that moment by being able to sit with my friend and, hold her hair and rub her back and, get her whatever I needed, I learned in that moment that I was going to be fine because I knew what to do and I could do that. And I could separate myself out of the part that goes, oh my God, this is awful. I was able to do that in that moment and be who and what I needed to be. Do you see what I'm saying? So sometimes these challenges that happen to us are the things that actually create us. I was thinking this morning about metal. So I don't know, in all honesty, I don't know a lot about this, but I've seen stuff. I've seen shows, I've seen movies, whatever. And like the blacksmiths, when they're making tools or swords or whatnot, they use a forge, don't they? So they use that fire to burn out impurities, to strengthen that steel, and they have to beat on the steel to get it to have the shape that they need. But by the time they're done, with the fire and the water to cool and the beating with the hammer and all of that kind of stuff, they have a tool that is really strong. So that fire is the thing that is necessary in order to create that strength in the metal. Do you see what I'm saying? And that really is what happens to us too. The more fire we face, the more difficulty we face, the more resilient we become. Resilience is very much like a muscle. It gets stronger and stronger the more we use it. And this is another place where, like, all of this stuff this morning, I love when I'm in this creative mode where all of these ideas are coming. Any athlete that you talk to, like, and I'm talking about it like an athlete. I'm not talking about somebody who just goes to the gym once a week. It may be them too, but if you have an athlete, one of the things that sets them apart is that they are crafting, they are honing and building and creating this body and pushing it beyond what it should be able to do in order to create the strength or the flexibility or whatever. Like dancers, like any kind of athletic person, and they will tell you, if you talk to them and you ask, there's a point when it's like they hit a wall and they can't go any further, but they dig deep and they push through. If you talk to runners or you read about them or whatever the case may be, if they're in the middle of a race and they hit their wall, they know that they have to keep going. They know that they have to keep breathing. They have to do whatever it is that they do. And I'm sure that a lot of them have some mental processes that they tap into to say, okay, just keep putting one foot in front of the other, or whatever they do. Do you see what I'm saying? Our bodies and our beings are capable of so much more than we understand in any given day. They are capable of so much more. And that's proven when you see these people who are lifting cars or dragging trucks or different things like that, swimming for miles and miles, riding their bikes from one city to the next. It is capable of so much more than we realize. Now, not everybody is going to feel the desire or the need to necessarily do that. I mean, I don't know that I ever would. I like to be fit and I like to feel strong in my body, but I don't really have any desire to run from one city to another. That's the truth, right? That's not something that matters to me, but there are people out there who do it. And if there are people out there that do it, then they are proving that other people could also do it if that's what they choose. So our bodies and our beings are capable of so much more than we understand. I think they say with your mind that you use like 10% of your brain. So what could happen if we could just start to push a little bit, just a little bit? What could change if we could, instead of operating at 10%, we could get that to 11 or 12 or 15 or 20? There's still so much that's not tapped into. But just think about that. If I'm already capable of this, what could happen if I could push just a little bit further? And the thing that happens is you push a little bit further. And once you're comfortable there, you push a little bit further and a little bit further. And before you know it, you're in a completely different place than you were before you started pushing yourself. Do you see what I'm saying? Do we get tired? Yes. Emotionally, physically, absolutely this happens, especially when we are going through some sort of crisis. Absolutely 100%. And in our next segment, we're going to get through some things to really help with that mental stuff, the subliminal soundtrack stuff, to help us push through when we have to. Okay, that we're going to get into some tips on how to do that, or steps on how to do that. So again, grab yourself that pen and paper, because this stuff is going to be really helpful if you are facing any of these challenges. So this is where I'm going to share with you some stuff that I haven't really talked about. So I am going through, I have been going through an illness, and it's not, thank God, it's not anything terribly serious, but it is something that requires medical attention. So this started just before COVID hit. So I think right around, we're at over 2.5 years now, over 2.5 years. That has been really challenging on a number of different levels, because if you've ever sort of found yourself dealing with like sort of a constant pain, a constant tiredness, it can really take a toll on you. And I'm not somebody who likes to slow down very much. I like to go. I like to keep going. I like to have fun. I like to live. Do you understand? So when this illness hit and we started to understand that it wasn't something that was going to be easily corrected, and it was going to require more medical intervention, it was a really hard thing for me. So when we got to that point, was just before my tax season starts. And I remember very clearly the fear that I had going into that. I knew how I felt. I knew that there were a lot of days where maybe I could work for an hour or two. I knew that my head was constantly racked with pain. I knew all of that kind of stuff. And I'm going into tax season, having done many other tax seasons, knowing the physical and mental toll that that takes on my body. And I was in a space of, oh my God, I'm never going to be able to do this. I'm never going to get through tax season. How am I going to do this? Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And I started to roll around in that muck. I really did. I started to roll around in that muck, and I was finding it so challenging and so hard. And as long as I stayed in that space, it was challenging and it was hard. What I came to at a certain point was I started to understand that I can do a little bit. I may not be able to put in a 12-hour day today, but I can put in half an hour. I can put in half an hour, and maybe I can rest a little bit and go back and put in another half hour. Or maybe I can push myself a little bit and it'll be an hour. And so when I started to shift in out of the I can't do this into the how can I do this, all of a sudden things became possible. And it absolutely had to make adjustments, and had to make allowances, and had to have conversations with people. But everything started to shift. So what I started to do was I would get up early, I'd make my coffee, I'd sit down at my desk, and I'd start working. And I would work for as long as I could. So I might get an hour in, I might get 45 minutes, and maybe I could even go 3 hours, right? Depending on the day, depending on how bad that pain in my head was, I could maybe go for a couple of hours, whatever it was. And then I would stop without judgment. This is the key. Without judgment, I would stop. I would go and I would lay down for a little while, or maybe I'd just be quiet and read a little bit, or watch some silly show on TV that would help my mind and body relax. And then I would come back and I would go, okay, so now how far can I push this time? Am I going to be able to do another half hour? Am I going to be able to go for 3 hours? I don't know. And do you see what I'm saying? So it's that shifting of the energy. It's about, okay, I'm going to challenge myself. I know I can do something. I don't quite know what yet, but I'm going to challenge myself. And there were days when, all of those little bits of time put together turned into a very healthy work day. And there were other days when I just couldn't do it. So without the judgment, I came to this place of, okay, how far can I push myself? The beautiful thing, many beautiful things actually, but the first one I'm going to mention is that I got through it because I shifted my mindset. And because I was thinking to myself, oh, good Lord, how am I going to do this? I actually started to think of different things. So I created processes that shifted how I did my business. They shifted how I worked with my clients. And what resulted was actually a much easier way to do that work. Isn't that fantastic? And that's what can happen when we say, okay, I'm not giving up. I am not giving up. I'm going to keep pushing. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to figure it out and I'm going to do it. And even if that means baby steps, I will get there. I will get this done. Do you see what I'm saying? It's all about what you believe you're capable of, what you believe you can do, what you believe is possible for you. All of that lives in there. So the other thing, and I'm pushing the break here, so we're going to have to go in just a second, but the other thing that happened was that once I started to shift that energy, all of a sudden other things became possible. Do you see? I started in May of 2020, I started my show. So I'm working with all of these health challenges. I was also going through a very difficult divorce and dealing with some pretty heavy stuff in my personal life, have the illness on top of it, start the show, completed 3 more coaching certifications over that 1.5 to 2 year span, started writing my book, started focusing more attention on the work that I really love to do. So when you go from, I can't do this, oh my God, I can't do this, into, all right, hold on, how can I do this? That was a massive shift. And that has changed so many things for me. So I'm going for surgery in a few weeks. Thank God we are finally at this point where we can get this thing taken care of. And what have I learned about myself? What have I learned about myself? I have learned to love myself. I have learned compassion and kindness for myself. Do you see? I have learned to do what I can and be okay with that, and then go back at it again. I have learned that I can do it. And when you really embrace that, when you really understand that, so much can open up for you. So many things become more possible when you shift out of the judgment of I can't into the space of possibility. How can I? Yes, it's massive. It is a massive thing. Was this hard? Absolutely 100%. And there were days and have been in those 3 tax seasons where I've not been able to do a whole lot of anything. But I've honored my body, I've honored myself, and then I've gone back at it the next day, and I've gotten through every single time. So what you believe to be possible, what you believe to be true, will be true, even if it's based on completely incorrect information. I believed that I could get through this. And you know how I believe that? Because I've gotten through everything else that life has ever thrown at me. And I know that I will get through everything else that comes my way, or I won't be here and it won't matter. One or the other. Okay. So now we have to head to our next break. So you're with me on Time to Rise and Thrive on Inspired Choices Network. I am your host, Jackie Mott, mindset and empowerment expert. Today we are talking about don't give up. You got this. When we come back, make sure you've got that pen and paper if you are able to, because that's where we're going to get into the how do we do this. So stick with us for just a moment. We will be right back.
What do you tell yourself when you're not listening? This question came to Jackie Mott when she was trying to find peace and purpose in the wake of tragedy. She began to understand that a lot of her pain and choices had been the result of how she perceived herself and her place in the world. And she set about creating a new subliminal soundtrack that would support her in creating a life of abundance, joy, and fulfillment. To learn more about how she did that and how you can do the same, join Jackie on her radio show, Time to Rise and Thrive, every Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 12 noon Central, 11 a.m. Mountain, and 10 a.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
What do you tell yourself when you're not listening? Our subliminal soundtrack plays in the back of our minds 24/7. It's filled with everything we've ever learned about money, relationships, body, and sexuality, about every single aspect of our lives. If you don't have what you desire, the Subliminal Soundtrack Reset program may be the very key to changing it all. In this 8-week program, designed by Jackie Mott, you'll learn to replace messages that stop your desires with new ones that not only support you in creating what you truly desire, but expand your life to higher levels of joy and pleasure. Go to phoenixcoach.ca today to sign up and begin creating your life on purpose.
How wonderful would it be to carry your favorite Inspired Choices Network host with you throughout your day? Well, now you can. Inspired Choices Network now has its very own mobile app. Our free app offers live streaming shows, along with thousands of podcasts and TV episodes. Our shows cover a wide variety of topics. Whether you're waking up with us, carrying us through the day, and taking us to bed with you, we're always here for you to enjoy. We're easy to find. Just search for Inspired Choices Network in the Apple App Store or Google Play Store.
This is the Time to Rise and Thrive show with mindset coach and facilitator of change, Jackie Mott. To participate in the program, join our live studio audience in our chat room at InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. For more information, visit phoenixcoach.ca, where you can follow Phoenix Coaching online. Now, back to the program.
Hello and welcome back to Time to Rise and Thrive on Inspired Choices Network. I'm your host, Jackie Mott. Today we are talking about don't give up. You've got this. How do we tap into those resources that we maybe aren't sure are there? How do we do that? So as we go into this segment, we're going to be talking about some of the things that I learned, some of the tips that I can give you if you're in a position where you are struggling. You know, you're really struggling and you're really trying to push through and you're really all of that kind of stuff. If you're in that spot, grab that pen and paper, or again, go to inspiredchoicesnetwork.com, search out Jackie Mott or Time to Rise and Thrive, and you will find all of the episodes. There might even be something else there that would help you. I'm just saying. So we live there. We live on YouTube. We're on, oh my God, we're on iHeartRadio. We're on Spotify. We're on Spreaker. We're on Binge TV networks. We are all over the place. If I'm not mistaken, it's like 255 platforms that we are on every single week. Isn't that exciting? I know. And 2 years ago, I wasn't even doing this. It's so exciting to come to a place where, you know, you've put it in and you've allowed. When they first started talking to me about doing this show, I was so hesitant. Now it's 2 years later and I love it. This is one of my favorite things to do every single week, is to come on here and share these things with you, to share with you some of the stories that I've gotten from my clients, from my colleagues, and all of that kind of stuff, to share that hope and that inspiration. Yeah, it's so exciting. Like, I honestly feel so blessed to be me. And that is one of the things that we are going to talk about in this tips section. So before we do that, I just want to let you know, you can find me at jackiemott.com. You can find me on Facebook at, Jackie Mott Mindset and Empowerment Expert. You can also find me through the InspiredChoicesNetwork.com website. So if you have any questions, if you have any things that are coming up for you that you need to discuss with somebody, please reach out to me. Please reach out to me. I offer a complimentary discovery session, which is called the Unstoppable You session, I believe is what yes, Unstoppable You session. And you can go to www.bookacallwithjackie.com and you can just pick a time. Just pick a time. Okay. You can reach me through Facebook. Find me. If you need some help with this stuff, this is what I love to do. This is my area of expertise. Yes. So find me. And by the way, the first 5 people who take action today will get the Unstoppable You session free of charge. Yes. My gift to you for taking action. How do you like that? All right. So let's dig in. Let's dig into this thing. So the first thing that I would like to throw out there for you to consider is probably the most important thing in my journey over the last couple of years has been self-care. Now, self-care is something that can be kind of confusing. So I'm going to spend a moment on that because it doesn't have to be necessarily anything specific. It can be going for a walk in nature. It can be going to rest when your body says, I can't go any further. It can be reading a book that helps you to perk up. It can be watching a podcast or a recording that helps you to feel hopeful. It can be going to the gym. It can be eating a healthy diet. It can be having a piece of pie because that's what you want to do today. And that makes you feel better. It can be any number of things. So try not to get hung up on the thing that somebody else tells you self-care means. You know what it means for you. I'm going away for a couple of days. I've got a room, I've got a jacuzzi tub, and I know that I need to rest because I'm going into the final push of tax season. I'm going into surgery. I've got a few other things going on in my life that are very important. And I was hesitant to do this. And then a couple of days ago, I was just like, forget it. I need. So I'm going away and I'm going to be quiet and have myself a nice little time with a jacuzzi tub all by myself. Yay. That for me is self-care. Okay. So what does it mean to you? And the thing is, you have to understand that you are responsible for this. You are responsible for your own mental and physical well-being. You are responsible for that. So it's up to you to figure out those pieces that help you when you need. We all should be sort of, and I hate the should, I'm sorry, that was a bad word, but it's important for us to be practicing self-care on a regular basis. And when we are in a place where things are difficult, where we may be feeling overwhelmed, or, there's a crisis going on or whatever it is even more important to be pouring into your own self-care bucket. So that is the number one tip that I've got for you on this. The second thing, remember we talked about all of that subliminal soundtrack stuff, right? Our mental state, how we feel about things is often driven by that stuff, right? If we feel that something's going to be hard, it's going to be hard. If we feel like something's going to be fun, then it's probably going to be fun because we're going to make it fun while we're there. Do you see what I'm saying? So all of that stuff is living back there. Our mental state is so important. So I'm going to show you this. Can you see this? Celebrate small victories. I have a bit of a collection of mugs, and it's become a thing over the last several years because friends of mine know this. So if they want to get me something for a special occasion, a birthday, for Christmas, whatever, then I often will get a mug with either a funny saying or an inspirational saying on it. And I love them. My cupboard is actually getting a little bit too full to keep all of them. So I'm going to have to start to go through them and say, okay, well, which ones work for me? Which ones maybe I'm going to put away? But these things. So what we tell ourselves is true. Even if it's not true, it will be true for us. Do you understand the power of that? What we tell ourselves is so important. Those belief systems will impact every single perception we have about everything, including how am I going to get through this? I can't get through this into how can I do it? Shift. Do you see what I'm saying? So this piece really is very much about remembering You have survived every single thing that life has thrown at you. You have a 100% success rate of surviving every single difficult circumstance in your life. When you are in this place and you remind yourself, I've survived everything else. I'm going to figure out how to get through this too. I've survived everything else. I'm going to figure out how to get through this too. I know that I can do this. It helps you to shift that energy into the thing that will help you propel, the thing that will help push you in the right direction. It helps you to dig deep. That self-talk, that subliminal soundtrack is absolutely essential. There's another saying that I've heard, and I absolutely heard this years ago, and I love it. It has stuck with me for probably 20 years. Storms don't come to pass. No, storms don't come to stay. Storms don't come to stay. They come to pass. Everything is temporary. Everything in this world is temporary. Think about that. Think about the power of that. Because if I can perceive this thing as being temporary, then I know that I just have to keep going a little while longer. And maybe then I have to go a little while longer, but I know that it's temporary. I know that I'm going to come out the other side at some point. If I keep pushing forward, even if it's only little tiny baby steps, if I keep pushing forward, I will get to the other side of whatever the circumstance is. Okay. So these things that we tell ourselves are so important. Third thing, ask for help or support when you need it and learn to set your boundaries and say no. That can also be, it can also go under that self-care umbrella, right? That self-care umbrella. Learn how to say no and have those conversations. It was important that first tax season for me to communicate with my clients and say, okay, this is what's happening. And this is how I'm working with it. Were they happy? Well, some, see, the thing of it is my clients know me. My clients know me and they understand me and they know that I will give them everything that I've got. So there's sort of that built up goodwill that is built up over the course of many, many years. And then because I'm being upfront and I'm saying, okay, here's my challenge. This is what's happening. I'm doing the best I can. That then gives them an opportunity. They can say, okay, you know what? I'm not comfortable with this. I'm going to take my work elsewhere. And that's fine. Or they can say, okay, I know you. I trust you. Give me what you got. And honestly, almost everybody was in that category. So it's important for us to communicate what's happening and have those conversations with our clients, our loved ones, our colleagues, or whomever it is. Okay. Have the conversations with the people that will be impacted by whatever it is that's happening in your world. Communication is absolutely essential. Okay. Also, don't overpromise. If you find yourself in a position where you're not quite sure that you're going to be able to make it, make sure that you can communicate that and communicate it clearly. Okay. This is what I can do. Is that acceptable? And again, their choice from there. So you're honoring yourself and you're honoring that other person by giving them an opportunity to chime in or make a choice for themselves. Fourth point, pace yourself. So this is where I was in that, like, okay, so I can do 15 minutes and then I'm going to stop. I can do half an hour and then I'm going to stop. I'm going to go as far as I can. And then I'm going to stop and allow myself to rest. Do you see what I'm saying? And it's applicable all over the place. So I garden most years. I have a garden that I put in and it was the same thing. I was thinking, oh my God, like my head is splitting and I'm dizzy and like all of these things. How am I going to do the physical work to deal with my garden? How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So I would literally go and do whatever I could, dig in the dirt for 15 minutes. Then I would go and sit down and take a break. And then I would go back. And do you see what I'm saying? So as time wore on, it all got done. It took maybe a little bit longer than it normally would, but that's okay because it got done in the end, right? So pace yourself. Figure out what you can do and work with that. Allow yourself to rest so that you can come back again. The last tip, and this is the best way that I have ever found to shift our energy, to shift our perspective. Count your blessings. Count your blessings. I said to you before, I'm blessed. I'm in Canada. I don't have to worry about a lot of things that other people in the world are worrying about right this minute. I am so very blessed and I'm so very grateful. Look at this. Oh, it says so very blessed. It's actually a Thanksgiving decoration I picked up at the dollar store. And I love it so much. It's staying out. It's staying out year round. I love it. So count your blessings. When you start to feel overwhelmed, think of 3 things that you have in your life. 3 that you have in your life. They could be people. This could be activities. It could be things, like I'm so glad that I have a comfy bed, or maybe you're lucky and you have a jacuzzi tub and you don't need to drive to another city and get into a hotel, right? Whatever it is, like think of 3 things. Next thing that you do is you allow yourself to really think about that. Like, what does that bring to my life? And then feel it. I'm so grateful that I have this person. I'm so grateful that I have that thing. I'm so grateful, and allow yourself to steep in that energy for as long as you need to. That will shift you out of anger, out of overwhelm. It will shift you like that. It'll take you about 2 minutes and you can completely shift your energy. So that is our 5 tips that I have for you today. And I'm sorry, guys, we are right down to the wire. I don't know how that happened. I had so much to say today. So there are other things that I might like to say, but we simply don't have time. So we're going to wrap it up with the quote that I want to leave you with. This is a poem, and I cannot remember. Oh, geez, Louise, I should have written it down. It's called Don't Quit. This is something I've seen a million times. So it says, don't quit. When things go wrong, as they sometimes will, when the road you're trudging seems all uphill, when the funds are low and the debts are high, and you want to smile, but you have to sigh. When care is pressing you down a bit, rest if you must, but don't you quit. Life is queer with its twists and turns, as every one of us sometimes learns, and many a failure turns about when we might have won had we stuck it out. Don't give up, though the pace seems slow, you may succeed with another blow. Often the goal is nearer than it seems to a faint and faltering man. Often the struggler has given up when he might have captured the victor's cup, and he learned too late when the night slipped down how close he was to the golden crown. Success is failure turned inside out, the silver tint of the clouds of doubt, and you never can tell how close you are. It may be near when it seems so far. So stick to the fight when you're hardest hit. It's when things seem worst that you must not quit. That's what I've got for you, my friends. John Greenleaf Whittier is what's popping into my head. I'm not sure if that's correct, but that's what's popping into my head as the author of that poem. This is something that I've looked at a million times over the course of my life. I have stuff posted all over the place that helps me. I have my mugs, I have my signs, I have my Thanksgiving decorations that remind me, even when things seem really hard, I am so very, very, very blessed. And you are too. We all are in some way. It's getting to the place where we can recognize that. And that's where I'm sorry, guys, I've got so much I'd like to share with you. This might be one of those things that needs to become like a half-day workshop or something. So I'm going to leave you with this. Next week, our show is called, oh, geez, I don't even have it. What is it, Kim? Hold on. I know she's taking care of things for me here. Next week, our show is called, oh, where'd it go? Oh, try it on and see if it fits. Yes, this is going to be a good one. This is going to be fun. So join us next week back here on Time to Rise and Thrive on Inspired Choices Network. Jackie Mott, mindset and empowerment expert, and we're going to talk about trying it on and seeing if it fits. It's going to be a lot of fun. So I hope to see you here 1 p.m. Eastern and so on. Have a great week, guys.
Thank you for joining us for Time to Rise and Thrive radio show. Jackie Mott will return next Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 12 noon Central, 11 a.m. Mountain, and 10 a.m. Pacific on inspiredchoicesnetwork.com. We hope you'll join us. Have a fantastic week, and remember, it's your time to rise and thrive.